The year is 1520. In the heart of the Aztec capital, Spanish soldiers desperately try to escape into the stormy night, overburdened with treasure. They move in silence, but the Aztecs see them and attack from all sides. Many men fall into the lake and drown in shallow water. Their leader and his dream of conquest are on the edge of ruin. He narrowly escapes. Behind him, a raging city, ahead, only wilderness. How will he recover from this and still return to topple an empire? These unwelcomed visitors were Spanish conquistadors wreaking havoc in the New World. They arrived after Columbus landed in the Caribbean, claiming lands for the Spanish crown. Within 25 years, they had colonized Hispaniola and Cuba, and now pushed onto the Mexican mainland. The leader of this expedition was Hernán Cortés, a man with unremarkable origins and outsized ambition. Born in 1485 in the Spanish town of Medellin, Cortés was 7 when Columbus reached the Caribbean. By the time he was a teenager, stories about the New World were echoing across Spain. At 18 years of age, Cortés embarked for the island of Hispaniola and became a colonist. A few years later, the Spanish expanded into Cuba. He joined the expedition of Diego Velázquez, who became governor of the island. Velázquez saw good potential in Cortés and gave him more responsibility, a colonial version of the corporate ladder. Gradually, he became one of Cuba's most influential men. When news came of rich empires on the mainland, Cortés volunteered to lead an expedition. Velázquez first approved, then changed his mind. But Cortés ignored the governor's order to back down. He gathered as many ships, men, and cannons as he could and sailed before Velázquez could stop him. This act of defiance would shape everything that followed. His expedition landed on the coast of Yucatan in Mayan territory. Here they found a stranded Franciscan monk from an earlier voyage, fluent in Mayan and instantly invaluable. The native opposition along the coastline was no match for Spanish weapons and tactics, so Cortés pressed on. He scored his first important win against the city-state of Tabasco, and with victory came tribute, gold, and 20 indigenous women. Among them was Malintzin, fluent in Mayan and Nahuatl, the main Aztec language. To Cortés, she was the key to unlocking the Aztec Empire. She would speak to the Aztecs, and the Franciscan monk would translate from Mayan to Spanish, teamwork at its finest. As they moved up the coast, Cortés claimed the land for the King of Spain and symbolically founded the first Spanish town in what is now Mexico. This move meant open rebellion against Velázquez, the governor of Cuba. Cortés left 100 men to hold the new town and marched inland. To make sure they won't betray and sail away, he scuttled all ships before leaving. As his group pushed inland, they interacted with numerous tribes, sometimes peacefully, often at sword point. For Cortés, these encounters became a crash course in local politics, power networks, and military strength. You see, what we now call Mexico was a network of city-states. They would make alliances or constantly be at war with each other. They even had different opinions about these strange men ravaging their territory. Some wanted to make them allies, others saw them as invaders. The Tlaxcalans, for example, fought the Spaniards repeatedly before realizing they could be useful allies against their Aztec arch-enemy, Tenochtitlan. And so Cortés and the main power in the region, Tlaxcala, struck an alliance and marched on together. The next stop was Cholula, the second largest city in central Mexico. Here, Cortés and his allies defeated the Aztec overlords, partially razed the city, and made a brutal example of its nobles. This sent a clear message of force to the entire region, their allies included. Victorious, the conquistadors and their ad hoc allies pushed toward the final prize, Tenochtitlan. The massive Aztec capital sprawled on a lake island, linked to the mainland by 3 causeways, an urban marvel, a defender's dream. Its ruler, Moctezuma II, had spent 18 years expanding the empire despite early famine and hardship. From the start, he funneled resources into the capital and court, alienating provinces that grew restless. By privileging nobles and slighting commoners, he made it easier for the Spanish to play them against each other. Those cracks left Aztec power exposed. Cortés understood he could play the strained relations, alliance networks, and rebellions in his favor. On November 8, 1519, Cortés and Moctezuma met on the causeway leading into Tenochtitlan and exchanged gifts. Why Moctezuma welcomed them remains unclear, probing their weaknesses perhaps, or aiming to turn them against his foes. Some sources say he was overly generous. He even offered to share his riches with the Spanish king, who Cortés claimed he was representing. Moctezuma lodged his guests in his father's palace, where the prying Spaniards uncovered great treasures. Then, 6 days after their arrival, Cortés learned unsettling news, and events took an unexpected turn. According to reports, Aztec troops had attacked the Spaniards back on the coast. Hearing the news, Cortés approached Moctezuma discreetly and demanded to accompany him quietly. Refusal would mean death, so Moctezuma complied. He gave Cortés assurance those responsible with the crimes would be punished, but Cortés refused to release him. Thus, the Aztec ruler became a prisoner in his own palace, yet he remained friendly to his captors. For months, Cortés tried ruling through his hostage, who the Aztecs still regarded as their ruler. At one point, Moctezuma's nephew and ruler of Texcoco City organized a rebellion to rescue his uncle, but Cortés used Moctezuma to intervene, and the initiative ran out of steam. Tensions spiked in April 1520 when Cortés learned of an expedition sent by his rival Velázquez to find and arrest him. He marched to confront them with a small, reliable force, leaving 200 men in Tenochtitlan under Pedro de Alvarado, one of his deputies. This proved to be a fateful decision. In his absence, Moctezuma asked Alvarado to allow a religious festival. Alvarado agreed. During the Great Temple Feast, the Spaniards decided to lock everybody inside and, well, mindlessly murder them. Over 600 Aztec nobles and their families perished, and we don't even know exactly why. Probably the gold-fevered conquistadors simply wanted to take their shiny belongings. Alvarado later called it a preemptive strike based on informants' warnings. Whatever the reason, the deed was done, and it led to revolt. It was now clear that Moctezuma's rule was compromised, and he had no power to protect his people. And so the Aztecs elected a new leader, who would try to rid them of their oppressive guests. The Spaniards locked themselves inside the palace. The Aztecs besieged them for about a month. Then Cortés returned. To everyone's amazement, he came back with more men than he'd left with. How was this possible? Well, Cortés ambushed the Spanish task force sent to arrest him. Their leader was captured, and the men were promised land and riches if they joined Cortés instead. Of course they agreed, so Cortés returned to Tenochtitlan with twice the men, but half the discipline. You can imagine the look on his face when he found his men locked in the palace and heard what had happened at the Great Temple. Cortés forced his way in and tried a desperate play. He shoved Moctezuma onto a balcony to appease his people, but that ship had sailed. The Aztecs threw stones at their former ruler. One proved fatal, although some sources say the Spanish murdered him instead. Nevertheless, Moctezuma was now gone, and along with him, any leverage Cortés thought he had. There was only one thing left to do: get out and fast. They made preparations, and a chance came in July. It was on a stormy night when Cortés thought they could make themselves as difficult to confront as possible. However, his men wanted to get out with a lot of gold, which obviously made it difficult to run or defend themselves. Previously, the Aztecs had removed the bridges over the gaps in the causeways, which connected the palace with its surroundings. To bridge the gap, the Spaniards constructed a mobile platform, but it got stuck when first used. To make things worse, they were now attacked from all sides, including from canoes on the lake. A proper debacle followed, with Cortés's men drowning in shallow water under the weight of their bounty and armor. Cortés dashed ahead, while 2/3 of his men and many allies perished behind him. Cannons and most horses were lost. This event remained in history as the Night of Sorrows. Survivors began their journey to Tlaxcala, home of their allies, to recover and figure out next steps. But they were literally not out of the woods yet, as Aztec groups constantly harassed them through the jungle. Days later, Cortés's group found themselves facing a large Aztec army on a plain near Otumba. They were vastly outnumbered, but the Aztecs were overconfident and wanted to capture some Spaniards alive, so they could sacrifice them to their gods. But the gods had other plans, and so did Cortés. Knowing that the natives never saw horses in battle, he organized his small cavalry of about 20 horsemen into a full charge. He instructed riders to go straight for the leaders and the war flags, betting the Aztecs would break once leaders fell. And he was right. Shocked by the cavalry charge, the natives collapsed, exposing their leaders. Once they were down, the Aztecs retreated. This was another stunning outcome for the beleaguered Spaniards, who finally retreated to Tlaxcala. A period of recovery and regrouping followed for both sides. Cortés first secured the continuation of his alliance with Tlaxcala. The Tlaxcalans were the main indigenous adversaries of the Aztecs, and they became fascinated with the conquistadors' military capabilities. The Aztecs tried without success to win them over and make them turn against their Spanish allies. Next, Cortés started a divide-and-conquer campaign among Aztec tributaries. Some were forced to change sides militarily, others by diplomacy. By backing the right leader, he even secured Texcoco to his side, the second-largest member of the crumbling Aztec alliance. Meanwhile, a more sinister foe struck the Aztec side and every other native population, smallpox. Unwillingly carried in by the Spanish, it met no native immunity or resistance and cut through populations. Some died of the disease itself, but many more perished from famine, as communities were too ill to sustain themselves. It was a calamity by any standards. It's estimated that over 40% of the population was lost within a year. Deaths were in the millions. The outlook was already grim for Tenochtitlan. They now faced Spaniards, their allies, revolting tributaries, and smallpox, all at once. Cortés received external help as well. 1 ship from Spain and 2 from Velázquez, ironically meant for the force sent to arrest Cortés. There were also other Spanish ships and conquistadors on exploration missions who eventually ended up joining him. He left for Tenochtitlan in late December 1520, with the objective to defeat and destroy it. A long siege followed. Cortés ordered 13 brigantine ships to be built, which meant the surrounding lake was no longer safe for Tenochtitlan. Months of land and lake battles ensued. The Spanish brigantines disrupted Aztec provision lanes and provided cover for land troops. Battles on the causeways leading into the city were brutal for both sides. Captured Spaniards were sacrificed at the Great Temple, sometimes within sight of their comrades. At one point, Cortés himself barely avoided capture, thanks to the selfless intervention of 2 faithful lieutenants. The Spaniards gradually advanced into the city, destroying every captured block so that their tactical formations could unfold. At one point, many native allies backed away due to attrition, but also spooked by an Aztec prophecy that the Spaniards would drop dead within 10 days. When that didn't happen, some Texcoco and Tlaxcala allies returned, while Aztec supplies ran thin. Finally, what was left of the Aztec forces surrendered on August 13, 1521. The entire campaign costed the lives of somewhere between 100,000 and 250,000 people. Most were Aztec civilians, who were shown no mercy by Tlaxcala. The revenge was fueled by a century of Aztec aggression towards them. Spanish losses topped 100 men in the siege and roughly 1,000 across the 2-year campaign. Cortés had proved his worth and was appointed governor by the king. He completely razed Tenochtitlan and built Mexico City on its ruins. Churches replaced pyramids, crosses replaced idols, and the Spanish baptized thousands, willingly or by force. Aztec survivors adapted and endured, while many more perished in the following years to colonial violence, disease, and famine. Yet their culture still exists, forever scarred but alive, through the Nahua communities across modern Mexico. Ironically, the Nahua population is part Tlaxcalan. Their ancestors continued to aid the Spaniards with their conquests. Many later assimilated into native populations across Central America, and even into what is now Texas. Cortés chased greater royal favor, but made more enemies. He gradually felt more undermined, betrayed, and insufficiently rewarded. His wealth grew, but he was still an adventurer at heart. He funded and participated in new expeditions, and even fought against the Ottomans upon returning to Spain. Ultimately, his expeditions drained him financially. He died of pleurisy at the age of 62 in Seville, Spain, while trying to return to Mexico. Cortés and his conquistadors lit a fuse that boosted Spanish colonialism decisively. No doubt he played his cards masterfully. Yet we tend to forget that events played out the way they did because other pieces of the puzzle also fell into place. Moctezuma's misjudgment was key, smallpox was decisive, and so were the Tlaxcalans and other natives. Their role is too often forgotten. What do you think mattered most in Cortés's successful campaign? Drop your take in the comments below. If this story left its mark, there's plenty more where it came from. Subscribe to The Reel of Time, where every episode digs into history and finds its heart still beating. See you next time.